Hello and welcome to this vlog. My name is Robert Holt. I'm Principal Architect here at Virtana. And today we're going to be talking about comparing capacity trends. So the purpose of this vlog is to show how to use VirtualWisdom reports to identify historical current capacity metric trends within your environment. This data can be used to predict potential issues prior to a capacity full event. The integrations we're going to use in this video are the Windows integration and the Linux integration. The report configuration used is going to be a blank ad hoc report. We're going to create something from scratch. We're going to be focusing on the multi-metric trend line tile, the time comparison tile, and the capacity forecaster tile. So why track capacity changes? Well, tracking the speed of increasing or decreasing capacity is important for a number of different reasons beyond the obvious. We're all familiar with drive full events and the issues that they can cause with applications and OS issues. But in general, it's real-time capacity monitoring from a dashboard or a knock screen perspective, as well as alarming on a positive and a negative deviation set threshold, which we can do in VirtualWisdom. It's also useful for pre-change control application upgrades. Things like, is there enough capacity at present to cover the upgrade, or specified application requirements. In addition, what is the expected elasticity of the application from a virtual memory perspective, application heap space perspective, file transfer, backup processes? Some backup processes back up locally first, compress the file, and then runs the transfer to an off-host storage section, so off to a NAS or something like that. Okay, it's also useful to track the fast decrement of storage utilization. That sort of thing can be indicative of an application issue. A database file has been moved off, or a log file has been moved off of a drive. Why has there been such a steep decrease in storage utilization? Okay, so switching to VirtualWisdom. Logging in and going to the reports landing page, and then clicking on report templates and new report, we'll create a blank report. What we're going to do next, we're going to hit the plus add here, and we're going to select the line chart section here. Okay, so we're going to search for Windows entities. There we go. We're going to select the Windows volume, and we're going to select a Windows volume out of this list. Now, I'm going to grab one that I've been focusing on recently, VM06. Incidentally, you can deselect Show Archived and stretch this out to get a little bit more real estate, see what's in the list. I'll search for this VM06. I'm going to select the C drive in this case. So we select the C drive. We're now going to select a metric. Click on Select Metric, expand on Capacity. And I'm going to pick the average percent utilized capacity. Okay. So we've set this up, and now we're going to add a couple more trend lines to this one tile. So I'm going to click plus and then plus again. So now I have 3 trend lines. Notice how the first one I filled in, but the second one keeps the same configuration as well as the third. We only need 3 for this example, but you can add up to 4. Okay. So we're going to pick average percent utilized capacity for the first one against this C drive. And we're going to change the second one. We're going to pick average usable. Okay. And we're going to pick the third one. The third one is going to be the total. So we'll click on the third tab, change the metric, and that is actually under the advanced section to total usable capacity. Okay. So we have Windows volume on each, C drive, percent utilized capacity for the first trend line, used usable capacity for the second, and total usable capacity for the third. Okay. We're going to click OK. That's going to build out this trend tile here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this slightly. I'm going to go back into the triple line here and hit Configure. And we're going to do follow out point shared, and we're going to do show at the bottom for the legend. Okay, click OK. You'll see it updates there. Now, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit here, so it's a little bit clearer for you guys. And you can see here now, if I float my mouse pointer over here, you can see that 3 metrics worth of data information on this C drive are presented, and we can see each data point at what stage they're at. So if we float mouse pointer over here at 12:30 p.m. on June 24th Pacific, I can see that the C drive, from a percentage standpoint, was at 49.58%. Used usable capacity from a gigabyte perspective was 74, and the total usable, so total available, is 149. So this combination trend line tile can give you a lot of information straight off the bat. Okay, so we're going to do the same. So this is from a Windows perspective. We're going to do the same for Linux. We're going to cheat a little bit here. We're going to do add row. I'm going to add row to the top. And we're going to grab hold of this by clicking this triple line here and then going to copy and paste. So we'll paste it in here. And we're going to use this as a template. And we're going to modify it and click on the edit metric. We're going to get rid of these outer two here and follow the same procedure. But this time we're going to use a Linux instance. Okay. So we're going to go down to Linux volume. We're going to select a Linux volume. This one I'm going to pick, I know is a fairly busy server, so we'll deselect show archived and stretch this out, pop this in here and hit enter. There it goes, searching for it, and we'll stretch the spine as well. We'll pick on SDA1. Okay, so we picked SDA1. Now we're going to select a metric. We're going to select the same metrics, percent utilized. And when we hit the plus a couple of times, you'll notice it follows again, Linux, SDA1, and so on. We're going to modify the second one. That's going to be total usable. And then we're going to go and add in a third one, which is going to be average used usable. So there we go, like that. And click OK. Okay, so let's float the mouse pointer over this data now. So for this particular Linux host, I can see the SDA1 average utilized capacity at 12:20 p.m. was 11.81%. Total usable is a terabyte. And the average usable capacity in gigabytes is 120 gigabytes, right? So this particular host has actually quite a bit of overhead. And the reason why you do this in these combination trend line charts is so that you can look at historic information as well as the current state of the union. So if we change this back to the last 7 days, you can see that it's been pretty static over time in this case, right? If we get rid of the percent utilized capacity, you can see quite clearly the upper limit and the current status. Now, it's worth noting these vertical axes are not linked. So you notice there's 120 gigabytes there, whereas the total usable capacity is actually a different scale. You can actually change that by going to configure and then doing changing the axes mode to a linked data set. So that's an option there. Okay, so jumping back to the slide deck, let's talk about a summary on this. The OS performance degradation from a drive fill event can be easily tracked here. With the data that I've just shown you, you can also tally the drive fill events or near drive fill events with any type of race condition, for an example. So you could mix and match metrics on the same report in VirtualWisdom. So you could look at the CPU as drive fill events start to occur if it leads down the road to a race condition. Okay. This is also useful to use these metrics when you want to look at pre and post change analysis comparables. So say if you're updating an application, you know, last week it was running on version X and this week it's running on version Y, and you want to see what the difference in capacity utilization is from the application if it's requiring more over time. So it's good for tracking in that regard. There's also a CapEx deferral component to this. Like I showed you with the Linux instance in VirtualWisdom, you could see that it had a terabyte allocated, but it was only using 125 and change, right? So you could potentially look at reclaiming storage on a lot of different hosts in this regard and defer purchasing of extra storage. Okay. Let's talk about a little bit of bonus material here. So we're going to talk about the inventory capacity properties, data extraction, time comparison trend, and the capacity forecaster. So let's jump into VirtualWisdom. Okay, so back in VirtualWisdom, we're going to switch over to the inventory landing page now. This is the second tab I have open. So on the inventory landing page here, we're going to look under the compute section. And what we're going to do here is I'm going to scroll down. Incidentally, this is a very useful landing page to get an overview of your entire environment that you're monitoring VirtualWisdom. Lots of counts here, lots of entity types, a lot of useful information here. So we'll scroll down and we'll head down to the Linux section. You see there's the Linux section. There's the Linux volume. We'll look at the Linux volume section here. And you can see here, sorting by column here, you can see the familiar SDA 1, 2, 5 partitions from a Linux host perspective. You can extract this data as well and add additional column information. So this is useful if you just want to get high-level data of your environment. You can go data as CSV, which will extract it to a CSV file for importing into Excel. You can also data to clipboard. And this is useful because you can get it straight from the UI. You can literally just right-click, copy, and away you go. Drop it into Notepad, that sort of thing. Jump back to the inventory landing page and scrolling down to the very, very bottom, you see there's the Windows section. So these are all of the Windows entities that are available to you for information. You can click on the Windows volume, and there you can see the familiar C, D, E drive, etc. Capacity here, and so on. Okay. Same thing. You can add additional columns, and you can export to CSV or data to clipboard. Okay, let's switch back to the report section here in our ad hoc report. And I'm going to show you capacity tracking using percentiles. So we're going to add a row above, and we're going to hit plus add. The capacity trend tile is here on the right-hand side under the special section. So it brings up this section here. And what we're going to do here is we're going to go through the same process. We're going to pick a Windows volume. So we'll search for Windows volume. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pick a VM06 this time, a different Windows instance. Again, click on Show Windows Volume, deselect Show Advanced. Let's stretch this out. Pop in our query host, and we see we've got CEF. We're going to pick on the C drive this time around. And what we're going to do here is we're going to pick on the average used usable metric. So click on the average used usable metric here. And we're going to select a few items. So we're going to select the 99th percentile, the 75th percentile, the maximum, and the minimum. Okay, we're going to click OK. You'll notice that we've got a bit of a narrow window here. So we're going to switch it out to the last 30 days. The reason why we expand this out quite a bit is you get a better overview of what's been happening from a capacity standpoint on this particular host. So think full business cycle. This particular tile and percentile representation, you really want to set it as a wide window. Now, I'm going to do an additional thing to this, this tile here. I'm going to hit triple line, go configure, and let's do follow at point shared. I prefer doing this. Notice the red and yellow threshold here, just something additional there. You can put in numbers for dashed yellow or dashed red lines. Okay, so let's click OK there. It'll redraw the trend tile so you can float over the data points. Okay, so look at this data and bear in mind it's set for the last 30 days, which is best practice. You can look at the capacity trending for this particular host on this drive, the C drive, over a long period of time, but from a percentile perspective. So the white line at the top is the max, right? That's the total available capacity, effectively. There's the maximum recorded, and then there's the 99th percentile. You can see they're basically the same, and also 75th percentile, and the minimum at 75.8 gigabytes. So what this tells me, looking at this data from a percentile perspective, is that the capacity didn't change that much over a long period of time for this host. So that's good to know. And also looking at this area here where there's a bit of a delineation, you can see that the maximum is 78.953. The minimum was 72.679. So something happened there where for a brief period of time in one of the percentile counts, it actually dipped a little lower and then stabilized again. This is very, very useful to get an accurate read of percentile usage of capacity over time for any Windows or Linux host. It's just a different way of representing the data. Okay, the final bonus content I'm going to show you is the time comparison tile. So we're going to add a row to the top. I'm going to click plus add. The time comparison tile is underneath the comparison section. And we're going to go through the same procedure. So what we're going to do here is we're going to click on application. We're going to look up Windows, go Windows volume. And we're going to look for a particular Windows volume. In this case, we're going to pick on VM05, the C drive. Same thing, click on that button there, deselect show archived, and stretch the width here, and pop the text in there and hit enter. So there it is, there's our drive. Now this time around, we're going to select the average percent utilization. That's under capacity. Average percent utilized capacity, select that. And notice this previous period here, I'm just going to leave this by default just for a moment. We're going to click OK and look at the data. Let's stretch this down as well. Okay, we're going to change this slightly. We're going to change this to the last 7 days. Okay, and now we're going to change what's called the offset. So the offset is located here. If you click on this triple line, click on configure, and look at the chart data tab, you'll see it says previous period. We're going to switch that out. We're going to go to 1 week previous and hit apply. We're also going to change another setting. We're going to change this follow-up point to follow-up point shared, and then hit OK. So what does this tell us? Well, if you look at a data point, first of all, you'll see 2 data points for the same entity and the same metric. So we're still looking at the C drive on this VM05, but we're looking at average percent utilized capacity on the C drive at 81% on Monday, June 20th at 3 a.m. And then the blue line is actually a 7-day prior. So the 7-day prior is June 13th, and that's at 80.07%. The idea of the time comparison trend tile is to see if it's comparable to the business cycle. So if you have a server that's supposed to do the same sort of thing on a day-to-day basis, week-by-week basis, this is where you can prove that. This time comparison tile is also very, very useful to see if there's been a major change after, say, a change control was invoked, say an application upgrade for a server, right? Is it using a lot more storage versus a week ago prior to the change control, and so on. So in this case, what we can do is we can switch this down to the last 24 hours and just say you had a change control this early hours this morning, and you want to know if there was a difference the day before. With this output of data, you can compare that in this regard, right? So I'm looking at this data, and bear in mind that the axis starts at 79.2% and goes up to 81.6. So it's a subset, so it doesn't look like 2 very compressed lines if it starts at 0. We can see that, let's pick this time here. At 9:10 a.m. this morning Pacific time, the C drive was at 79.37 average percent utilized capacity. Right? On the 7-day offset, in the same time window, and by time window I mean the last 24 hours, so 24 hours window 7 days ago, it was at 81.042. So that's a decrease today versus 7 days ago. And you can change that slightly as well. We can configure this and we can switch it down to 1 day previous as an example and hit OK. And there you go. So there's a difference there. Okay. Okay, so I want to thank you for for watching this vlog on capacity metric reporting. If you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to visit Virtana.com and reach out to our team to find out ways that you can monitor capacity in your environment. Thank you again.